All right. It is time that I finally talk about AI. Everyone's talking about it. It's been the big thing in the mainstream media for over a year, 2 years now. And as a person who's been in tech, IT, software development, automation, DevOps for many, many years, decades when it comes to tech in particular, I'm here to discuss and break down some of these misconceptions and ideas on AI because I feel like most people are worried about the wrong things. Most people don't really know how to handle this and they always want to add in their 2 cents. At the end of the day, that's how it's actually been for a lot of things once the market and mainstream media and the hype train kind of takes over. But if we take a step back, AI has been around for a long time, and that's because AI in reality doesn't really exist, not in the way that we think of it in like movies and TV shows. At least when I was growing up, the first thing I would think of when it comes to AI is that AI movie where they had like a kid who was able to reason and think for himself and do a bunch of X, Y, and Z things that we think are human. However, what we think of AI can actually be mimicked very easily. Humans are very easily tricked and are very easily gullible because we actually go off of pattern recognitions for a lot of different things. That's just how humans are. A lot of other mammals are like this, but for humans, we take this to a huge extreme. If we see a pattern that seems similar to something that we can associate, we're gonna lock onto that to kind of see if that is something that is similar or dissimilar. We are naturally evolved to be able to recognize patterns within the environment to understand things. This is why when we actually look at a robot that is like on the cusp of being a human as far as physically, it looks completely off and gross to us because we have patterns that are specifically designed for us to be able to know what a human looks like. But patterns are something that we pick up as a human society naturally. And knowing this, you can take advantage of this. This is something that's been going on for decades. If we just take a step back and think about Google, its model, how it works. This is a search engine that's main goal is to predict what you most likely are trying to look up. Yes, it's going to give you advertising and sponsors and things like that, but that's because their actual model of their algorithm has been so successful that if someone's trying to get, let's say, some sort of washer machine or some sort of shopping item or some sort of idea or tech, that they're able to connect sponsors or ads to those type of things. But in reality, the main thing, if we just take the market and capitalism out of everything, its main goal is to try to predict what you're most likely trying to find on the internet. And that's been around since the 90s, in the early 2000s in the dot-com bubble. So this is not something that's new. The concept of how we approach this prediction is something that fluctuates and gets better. ChatGPT is not something that's new. The idea of what it is something called predictions, or for this case, for ChatGPT, it would be a text prediction. We realize that text predictions are very valuable. Instead of just searching something that brings us to a site, trying to predict that way, it's easier to sometimes ask something that has a huge corpus set of information that it can go off of to kind of lead us to the right way. Us as individuals always need to know the right context and know things. It's never going to be perfect, but predicting those type of things can be quite valuable, and that's kind of where AI is. But people think that therefore that's going to somehow take over jobs, like somehow predictions of what we think for what we're trying to get done and accomplished as humans somehow is going to take over a job. And what's funny about that is that kind of that's going to be the case because of the fact that people from the higher up and lower up are kind of just stupid on this subject. Anyone who's a CEO who's kind of just given something to think about and hope and who has a lot of money but doesn't really know anything on tech would be sure to just throw money at something to see if that's going to work. That makes sense. But meanwhile, the lower end person's going to be actually affected by it because of course that's not going to work. That's not how predictions work, at least for ChatGPT. And even if it created something like image generation or video generation, that's not going to replace the entertainment industry. It's just not feasible in any sort of way. Even if you work up to it and make it look better and everything like that, the biggest point is that you need actual human context. That is the truth. And so there's a lot to kind of unpack here with that, but just kind of keep that in mind when we go about this discussion. AI has been around for a while. the idea and concept can be used for anything. If we just take, for example, video games, right? We think about an enemy who's on screen, who can be able to know the scene of where it is as far as its surroundings, and then act upon what we do accordingly. It's not real AI, it's more like if or else statements wrapped in a scene or environment for us to be able to kind of manipulate. But as the individual, if you're just playing and having fun, you don't necessarily know that. Usually your actions guide the actual AI, so to speak, into doing whatever it needs, and the way it works and as far as its if and else statements are very rudimentary. So there's no real reasoning there. And even when you think of something like Google's Deep Alpha Mind, which was able to play StarCraft at an extremely high professional level, and AI chess that's been around for about a decade plus, beating professionals at chess, right? Those things have been around for quite a while, and yet we're not saying, oh, that's taking over jobs, because they're actually meant and designed for specific things that humans want. And that's kind of the point. At the end of the day, humans want some sort of automation, some sort of thing to challenge themselves. There's never the equation that a human is never going to be involved. Well, what about jobs, right? Like, people are really worried about AI kind of taking over a bunch of jobs and taking over the entertainment industry and taking over real human quality jobs, right? And I'm going to say to that, yes, but really no. And if you're really worried about that, I think that you have a bigger problem if it really does replace your job. And we'll get into that in a bit. Let's say you're a video editor. Let's say you're a photo editor. Let's say you do photography. Let's say you do content creation, right? AI may get to a point where it may be able to do a video like this. Perfect, cool, right? But at the end of the day, you're gonna need someone to be able to review that information. It's never gonna be perfect, and that's because we've never, for decades, had anything that's perfect, for the most part. Google's been pretty good, but even still, it's not perfect if you're trying to find something that you're trying to search for, right? Like, there's nothing that you know of right now, like just name any sort of technology that's been around for 30, 40, 50 years that's absolutely perfect. It's just never gonna be. Human input is just natural. We dictate what is perfect to us. We dictate how things are going to go about in general. Or, I'm sorry to say this, but your job most likely should have been replaced to begin with. There are no milk carton men anymore, if you think about it. But a lot of jobs from AI are not going to be replaced. That's just the fact, because again, what we think of AI is just a manipulation of what we think of for repetitious patterns, right? Prediction. So there's not really some sort of thing that's out there yet. Like, robotics have been out, right? So what? Like, AI now can be combined with a bot, right? Like, that's not, is that going to make it cost effective? No, like, we're still not there yet. Like, I remember wanting to build a restaurant back in 2016 that basically used robotics to control everything automated wise, right? We've had these type of things for years. It's not going to therefore revolutionize something where therefore everything's going to be replaced. It's just not. Even if it slowly does, that's actually beneficial. That's beneficial. Humans are not being replaced at any point, at any time soon, and that's going to continue to be for a long time. And on the company side, companies are so stupid. I mean, at the end of the day, you think of Microsoft, right, when they're doing this Copilot thing. At the end of the day, I thought Copilot is great. Should you rebrand everything to Copilot? No, you're forcing it on people, just like Microsoft Edge. And every time you force it, it's just not going to work as well. People are going to be more resistant. Even if Edge is a good product, I just would rather not, just because you try to force it on me every single time you can, right? Like, so that was stupid. The Microsoft recall, I'm actually on the company side for this. People who are developers and tech people are trying to make it seem like as if recall is super scary. It's not. Recall had an option at the beginning that allows it so that you don't send the data over to Microsoft. This just means that the model lives on the computer and is able to help you to be able to do what you need to faster. That is super cool, right? Like, you don't need to send that information to Microsoft at all. And what's funny is Microsoft has been doing sneaky data collecting practices for years. This isn't new just from AI. It's not. If you think about any Microsoft OS from the past 15 years, it's always had telemetry settings where you can disable it, but if you don't, then Microsoft kind of tracks the information of what you do in applications and how they run and how your computer's doing. So for you to just assume that therefore now they're tracking you is
kind of asinine, right? Like they already are, and unless you've changed your settings to not have that happen, then they're already doing such, and you can, from the beginning, disable this. And so Microsoft had some good products, but their branding on this was really stupid in particular. I actually think Recall would have been great. I have not used it, but I've looked into it extensively, and I would have loved it. I just didn't think it was worth the money. Some of the things as far as their pricing on some of that stuff is absolutely insane. So, but like every company trying to throw AI into something is desperate because they know that this is the new hype and they don't know how to capitalize on it. It was like when the iPhone came out and then a couple years later there was the whole app boom where everyone was trying to make a new app and stuff like that to be the next like new Flappy Birds, right? Like there's always a hype that comes out that the tech industry kind of just gaffes and baffles over, and at the end of the day, people who have a lot of money just try to throw things at things, and sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. And when it comes down to text prediction, you shouldn't be doing that in everything. I'm just going to be honest with people. If you just think about like phones and just think about devices, at least 10 years ago, we've had a lot of all of this stuff already. They're just trying to wrap it in a new thing. Like, I guarantee you, right? Like if you think of Siri and any of the assistants already, you can ask the weather to those assistants and they're gonna give it to you. You can look up what you need as far as the most basic things and you can find it from text predictors already. ChatGPT just made it as mass as possible with the way they were able to market and make it seem like this is AI, and everyone loves it. So for everyone who's worried, don't worry, it's just a new hype and we're gonna get over this soon. But at the end of the day, just let these CEOs fail. And once we do, we'll finally get over this and kind of get back to some normalcy. That I can guarantee. So that's what I wanted to talk about when it came to AI, at least for this rant or this discussion. If you guys like the video, please leave a like. I would love if you guys subscribed, and if you guys want comments or, didn't like what I was saying or anything, please leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear everything and have a nice hearty discussion with everyone. Other than that, I hope the rest of everyone's day goes well. Peace, everyone.